On June 16, U.S. President Donald Trump unexpectedly left the G7 summit in Alberta a full day ahead of schedule. At the time this video was produced, the only available explanation came not from official channels, but directly from Trump's own social media. In a characteristically direct post, he wrote that French President Emmanuel Macron had mistakenly claimed the departure was to facilitate a ceasefire negotiation between Israel and Iran. Trump dismissed this assertion outright, writing, "Wrong. He has no idea why I am now on my way to Washington, but it certainly has nothing to do with a ceasefire. Much bigger than that. Whether purposely or not, Emmanuel always gets it wrong." Stay tuned. While Trump's sudden exit drew headlines, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney pressed ahead with a packed diplomatic agenda, using the summit as an opportunity to deepen Canada's ties with both long-standing allies and key global partners. On June 16th, Carney met with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba for a focused 20-minute discussion on the sidelines of the summit in Kanascus, Alberta. Building on prior commitments, the two leaders agreed to finalize agreements on the security of classified information and the transfer of defense equipment and technology between their nations. Measures aimed at bolstering the strategic alignment of their armed forces well beyond existing reciprocal supply agreements. In addition to security cooperation, their dialogue touched on shared economic priorities. They reviewed collaborative initiatives in energy and advanced technology, including joint ventures involving LG Canada and small modular reactor development with Japanese firms. Both leaders identified new opportunities in sectors such as batteries, critical minerals, aerospace, and shipbuilding, emphasizing the importance of resilient supply chains and cutting-edge innovation. Carney underscored the need for trusted international partners, particularly amid mounting global instability. Ishiba echoed the sentiment, acknowledging the rise in global trade disruptions and emphasizing Japan's desire to work with reliable counterparts. The two agreed that strong bilateral relationships would be essential in protecting free trade and economic stability, and they committed to continued dialogue through ministerial meetings and technical working groups focused on defense, energy, and technology, turning this summit into a springboard for concrete future action. Later that same day, Carney welcomed German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the Pomeroy Kanascus Mountain Lodge, where discussions centered on expanding Canada-Germany collaboration across energy security, emerging technologies, and the defense industrial base. Carney highlighted Canada's role as a dependable partner in natural resources, critical minerals, and advanced fields like AI and quantum science. Reflecting the growing divide among G7 members on key policy directions, Carney adopted a pragmatic tone, stating that he aimed for a minimal final declaration from the summit and would work to minimize damage to the institution, a clear nod to the underlying tensions that had shadowed the gathering. Despite these challenges, Carney remained focused on tangible outcomes. He emphasized the summit's potential to deliver progress on peace and security, while also building robust critical mineral supply chains and creating good jobs. Merz reaffirmed Germany's commitment to shared prosperity and to standing by its allies. The two concluded their brief but pointed conversation with a pledge to maintain close engagement through a structured series of follow-up dialogues, designed to translate their discussions in Kanascus into real-world initiatives with measurable benefits for both nations. Meanwhile, on June 15th, Carney hosted UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Ottawa, marking Starmer's first official visit to Canada since taking office. Their meeting reflected both continuity and ambition. It built on Carney's earlier visit to London and reaffirmed the historic and deeply rooted relationship between the two countries. Amid recent provocations from other G7 leaders, Starmer made a point of affirming Canada's sovereignty and respected status within the Commonwealth, emphasizing that Canada remains both independent and a vital partner in the international system. Trade integration was a key focal point of the dialogue. Carney announced that his government would introduce legislation in the upcoming parliamentary session to ratify the UK's accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, a move he said would significantly benefit UK businesses by reducing tariffs and expanding market access across both nations. Looking ahead, the two leaders agreed to establish a formal UK-Canada Economic and Trade Working Group to address lingering market access barriers and pursue emerging areas of cooperation. These would include digital trade, critical minerals, and sovereign AI infrastructure, fields that are increasingly central to both countries' economic strategies. Their discussion also expanded into defense and cybersecurity. In light of escalating digital threats, Carney and Starmer reaffirmed their commitment to bolstering security both bilaterally and through multilateral alliances like NATO and the Five Eyes. One key deliverable was the announcement of a new Canada-UK Common Good Cyber Fund, jointly financed with $5.7 million over 5 years. This initiative aims to combat digital transnational repression and support civil society organizations most at risk from hostile state and non-state actors. Furthermore, both leaders acknowledged the growing security implications of artificial intelligence. They committed to closer collaboration between Canada's AI Safety Institute and its UK counterpart, signing memoranda of understanding with Canadian firm Keir to advance AI safety and sovereignty through joint research and infrastructure development. In another significant bilateral engagement, Carney met with French President Emmanuel Macron, continuing a dialogue that had resumed earlier in the year during Carney's official visit to France. This latest meeting focused on enhancing trade and commercial ties to boost prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. A major highlight was the announcement of a large-scale deal between LOT Polish Airlines and Airbus for the purchase of 40 A220 aircraft, jets that are designed and engineered in Canada and manufactured at the Mirabel facility in Quebec. The agreement was celebrated as a win for transatlantic cooperation, supporting jobs in both Canada and Europe. Carney emphasized that partnerships like these illustrate how shared economic interests serve to strengthen broader strategic relationships. Looking beyond aerospace, the two leaders turned their attention to the critical minerals and clean technology sectors. They discussed aligning efforts in battery production, quantum computing, and AI innovation, with Macron expressing strong support for deepening cooperation in these emerging domains. Carney reiterated Canada's comparative advantage in sustainable resource development and frontier technologies, underlining that collaboration in these areas would be essential for building future economic resilience and environmental sustainability. As the summit drew to a close, despite the high-profile distractions and the occasional divergence among leaders, Carney's steady diplomacy yielded a series of forward-looking commitments across defense, energy, innovation, and trade, reaffirming Canada's role not just as a middle power, but as a proactive and indispensable partner on the global stage. During the G7 summit in Kanascus, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney held a series of high-level bilateral and trilateral meetings, reaffirming Canada's commitment to global collaboration across a wide array of strategic priorities. In his meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, Carney highlighted the deep alignment between Canada and France on major international challenges, including climate change, economic resilience, and technological advancement. Macron emphasized that both nations stand on common ground regarding the urgent need to accelerate progress in these areas, and identified digital innovation as a particularly promising field for joint investment and development. The leaders placed strong emphasis on cybersecurity and intelligence cooperation, recognizing the rapidly evolving nature of global threats. Their mutual support for increased collaboration was underscored by their enthusiastic endorsement of a newly signed Memorandum of Understanding, which aims to significantly expand intelligence sharing protocols between the two countries. Carney commended Macron's guidance in these domains, characterizing it as essential to the defense of democratic institutions in an age of digital disruption and hybrid threats. Macron reciprocated the sentiment, affirming that Canada and France are more secure and effective when standing together in the face of cyber threats and other transnational challenges. The two leaders committed to ensuring that the momentum generated during the Kanascus meeting would not dissipate. They pledged to initiate a series of structured high-level dialogues and task-oriented working groups focused on concrete issues such as trade, energy transition, emerging technologies, and geopolitical security. Regular ministerial exchanges were agreed upon as a mechanism to translate the bilateral vision into measurable outcomes, fostering continuity and accountability in joint initiatives. Both leaders acknowledged that sustained cooperation would be critical not just for bilateral relations, but for shaping a stable and resilient Indo-Pacific region in the years ahead. Following this, Carney met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in another pivotal bilateral engagement. As the two leaders took their seats, Carney opened the conversation with a sense of urgency and gravity, stating, "The world looks to this table for leadership." His words served as a call to action, reflecting his intent to steer the G7 forum toward meaningful solutions. He thanked Meloni for her role in advancing the G7's collective response to the global fight against illicit drugs, emphasizing the pressing need to intensify work on combating organized crime, transnational repression, and foreign interference, issues that transcend borders and demand united resolve. The conversation then turned to economic cooperation, where both leaders reflected on progress made during their recent meeting in Rome. Carney expressed his intent to build upon those discussions by deepening bilateral ties in areas such as clean energy, scientific research, and advanced innovation. He highlighted the Italy-Canada roadmap for enhanced cooperation as a concrete demonstration of the two nations' growing commercial and strategic relationship. The leaders reaffirmed their shared commitment to supporting Ukraine, agreeing that the pursuit of a just and enduring peace must remain a core priority for the G7. In a clear signal of ongoing engagement, they pledged to remain in close contact and ensure follow-through on all joint commitments. Their approximately 20-minute exchange sent a strong message of unity and partnership, reinforcing the view that Canada and Italy are steadfast allies navigating a time of global instability with shared purpose and determination. Later in the day, Prime Minister Carney convened a trilateral meeting with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa to deepen ties between Canada and the European Union. Carney began by emphasizing the strength and depth of the Canada-EU relationship, noting the increasing convergence between the two sides on a range of pressing global issues. He reaffirmed Canada's commitment to expanding the Canada-EU Free Trade Agreement and to defending the principles of open, rules-based international trade amid a shifting global landscape. Carney also stressed the need to intensify collaboration in defense and security policy to address evolving geopolitical challenges. A central focus of the meeting was the strategic role of critical minerals in powering the clean energy transition and safeguarding economic competitiveness. Both Carney and von der Leyen agreed that securing responsible and resilient supply chains for these essential resources is no longer optional, but a matter of strategic necessity. Von der Leyen emphasized that Europe views this challenge as existential, especially in light of increasing global competition over rare earth elements and other key materials. Carney echoed this perspective, noting that Canada, as a resource-rich nation, is uniquely positioned to be a reliable partner for Europe in securing these materials in a sustainable and ethical manner. The leaders confirmed that technical working groups were already active, laying the groundwork for a roadmap that would be formally adopted at the forthcoming Canada-EU summit. Against the backdrop of mounting global trade tensions, von der Leyen delivered a pointed message, warning that now is not the time to introduce economic uncertainty or disrupt international trade flows. "This is not the moment to create problems on trade," she said, "because we must strengthen our economic foundations, not undermine them." Carney strongly concurred, cautioning against the rising tide of unilateral tariffs and economic protectionism. He stressed that Canada and the EU must stand together in defending the multilateral trading system and ensuring that economic fragmentation does not derail global growth. In broader G7 deliberations, von der Leyen drew attention to a growing threat: China's use of subsidies and export restrictions in the critical raw materials sector. She characterized these actions as constituting a new China shock, warning that such policies threaten to distort global markets and challenge the ability of democracies to compete fairly. She urged G7 members to develop a coordinated response to China's growing dominance in this space. Carney agreed wholeheartedly, offering Canada's analytical and policy support to help monitor market distortions, assess economic impacts, and formulate multilateral strategies to counteract these imbalances. The trilateral meeting concluded with a reaffirmation of their shared commitment to high-level engagement. Carney, von der Leyen, and Costa pledged to continue ministerial-level dialogues and to empower working groups focused on trade expansion, critical minerals cooperation, defense integration, and sanctions enforcement. They confirmed that these initiatives would culminate in concrete agreements at the upcoming Canada-EU summit, marking a new chapter in transatlantic cooperation amid rising global uncertainty. In sum, Prime Minister Carney's series of strategic diplomatic engagements during the G7 summit reflected a clear and ambitious agenda: to position Canada not only as a steadfast bilateral partner to key allies, but also as a proactive leader in shaping a coordinated, principled response to the defining challenges of the 21st century. From cybersecurity to climate action, from economic resilience to geopolitical security, the discussions in Kanascus laid the foundation for enduring partnerships built on trust, shared values, and a vision for a more stable and prosperous global order.